Happy Saturday. We're up to day 132 for Poetry Lockdown. Um, the poem that I'm going to read today is like a number of the poems that I've shared, a poem that's really been in my head and kind of rattling around upstairs for a lot of this quarantine. Um, I don't know if I've mentioned in the series, but I've been reading and listening to a lot of the Franciscan priest Richard Rohr. I'm very moved by his spirituality, and it feels really to be talking to the times that we're in as well. But this is a favorite poem of his, and this is really how I got introduced to the poem. Although I'd known Rilke's work before, it's incredible. All of his stuff is great. But one of the things Richard Rohr talks about a lot is just the necessity of descent, right? As in going down in order to ascend. He's interested in, obsessed by, reflecting on always the death and resurrection of Jesus, and really sees that as the pattern that all of us have to go through. But we don't like to think about descent, especially in the United States. We always want to be going up. And I feel like this poem really speaks to the necessity of embracing the descent and the defeat that is part of human existence. So this is Rilke's The Man Watching. I can tell by the way the trees beat after so many dull days on my worried window panes that a storm is coming. And I hear the far off fields say things I can't bear without a friend, I can't love without a sister. The storm, the shifter of shapes, drives on across the woods and across time, and the world looks as if it had no age. The landscape, like a line in the psalm book, is seriousness and weight and eternity. What we choose to fight is so tiny. What fights with us is so great. If only we would let ourselves be dominated, as things do, by some immense storm, we would become strong too and not need names. When we win, it's with small things, and the triumph itself makes us small. What is extraordinary and eternal does not want to be bent by us. I mean, the angels who appeared to the wrestlers in the Old Testament. When the wrestler's sinews grew long like metal strings, he felt them under his fingers like chords of deep music. Whoever was beaten by this angel, who often simply declined the fight, went away proud and strengthened and great from that harsh hand that kneaded him as if to change his shape. Winning does not tempt that man. This is how he grows, by being defeated decisively by constantly greater beings. And that was translated by Robert Bly, a great poet in his own right. Wow. Really powerful poem. I'm always drawn to paradox, right? The thing that seems to be false but is really true, and that defeat is really what leads to ascent to understanding. It seems at the heart of this poem. I'm also really moved by what I see as a central allusion in the poem, which is to that old story from the Old Testament in Genesis of Jacob wrestling with an angel the night before he meets his brother Esau, who, by the way, he had deprived of the birthright as the firstborn, and he's really afraid. What he sees before that, the night before he meets him, Esau has sent a number of his men and soldiers across the plain, and he's wondering if this is going to be a warlike encounter or if his brother will forgive him for his stealing of the birthright. And then there's this strange night where he wrestles all night with an angel. So as I was reading this poem, and I saw that allusion, I wanted to reread that section of Genesis. So I'll include that as a little bonus for lockdown. I've mentioned this scholar before, who is, I think, a poet in his own right, Robert Alter. He's translated, I think, almost all of the Torah, what the Christians would call the Old Testament. And his translation here is really magnificent. And there's a note that he gives that I kind of want to share because I think it hits at the heart of this poem. So this is, when Jacob's wrestling with the angel. This is from Genesis 32. Um, he, Jacob, and he saw that he had not won out against him, and he touched his hip socket. So that's the stranger. And Jacob's hip socket was wrenched as he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." And he said, Jacob, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." And he said, "Not Jacob shall your name hence be said, but Israel, for you have striven with God and men and won out." Very interesting. And then this note just really hit home for me. Thanks for allowing me to nerd out. Genesis. So this note from Alter, the translator, says, "Appearing to Jacob in the dark of the night before the morning when Esau will be reconciled with Jacob, this angel is the embodiment of portentous antagonism in Jacob's dark night of the soul. He is obviously, in some sense, a doubling of Esau as adversary, but he's also a doubling of all with whom Jacob has had to contend. And he may equally well be an externalization of all that Jacob has had to wrestle with within himself." And I read that and I can't help think of Richard Rohr and his discussion of shadow self and acknowledging those parts of yourself that you don't like to. A powerful physical metaphor is intimated by the story of wrestling. Jacob, whose name can be construed as, quote, "he who acts crookedly," is bent, permanently lamed by his nameless adversary in order to be made straight before his reunion with Esau. I find that incredibly moving to think about, being bent and lamed, and that's the way that you become made right before somebody else. And then that seems to really match what I would understand about the descent and then ascent in spiritual growth in human life. So, thanks for letting me get a little homiletic and spiritual there. But poetry often does that for me. It feels like an opportunity and sometimes an engine of spiritual growth because it names and says things that are big. It's not interested in the small things when I think it's really live poetry. And I think this poem by Rilke, it's going to live with me a long time. And I hope I have new insights when I look at it the next time. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend.